We're missing Alvin.
Call the Water Demand Committee meeting to order at 1:30, 1:31.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Director Paul,
Here.
Director Anderson. I know Amy is here, and Chair Edwards.
I'm here. All right. First order of business will be comments from the public. Do we have any public?
We do have one member of the public. However, I see no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. First action item. Jim, what we have?
Well, we'll turn this one over to Stephanie.
Well, actually, we have adoption of the minutes first
Oh, you're right.
for
My
October
bad.
3rd.
I'm rushing ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. First action item.
I move that we adopt the minutes of the October 3rd meeting.
Second.
We got a first and a second by Director Paul and Director and Chair Anderson. All right. Any comments from the public?
Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Okay. Let's take a vote. Take a vote.
Yes. Director Anderson,
Yes.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Chair Edwards.
Yes.
Minutes are adopted 3-0.
Okay. Next action item.
Next action item is this is to consider a recommendation to the board on the first reading of ordinance number 196, which establishes allocations of water from Pure Water Monterey expansion. And this ordinance is part of your packet. As we all know, the Pure Water Monterey expansion is expected to be completed late next year. And our general manager has been visiting each of the jurisdictions to explain the allocation process and get feedback from them. We met with a group of the representatives from each of the cities back in September to review the allocation process and get their feedback at that time. And so what is now before you is the first draft of the ordinance to allocate 371 acre feet, which is the first allocation of water from the Pure Water Monterey expansion. The staff report list has a table in it that is also in the ordinance, and that shows what the expansion allocation is, and then what the jurisdiction's existing allocation remaining was as of October 31st. And then a column that shows what the total allocation is as of October 31st. This will be updated when the board adopts the ordinance. That table will be updated to show what the existing allocation is as of the effective date of the ordinance. So this is just to give you an idea of what it looks like right now. In terms of the CEQA, or California Environmental Quality Act review, the board adopted CEQA documents last March. There was a determination that an additional water allocation was within the scope of the 2021 supplemental EIR, and that we did not need to do additional work on this. The board of directors considered and approved an addendum in conjunction with that 2021 SEIR. And so that is being referenced as the CEQA work for adoption of the ordinance. I will have a file prepared that will have all of those documents in it, so that in the future, if someone has to locate that information, they'll have it in a place that will be handy. Today, the Water Demand Committee should review the draft ordinance and recommend to the board to approve the ordinance at first reading, which I think is scheduled for the December board meeting. Is that correct? If you have any questions, I can answer that. This has been reviewed by legal counsel, and I think we have both Fran and Michael here, Fran has been working with me on this. So, other than that, that concludes my presentation.
Okay. Board question. Go ahead, Director Paul.
Yes, I don't know the history of the Water West
Good question.
allocation, and could you briefly explain how that came about?
Sure. So the Water West allocation is, there was a small water system out in Carmel Valley, and that was eventually purchased by Cal-Am. Cal-Am did some improvements to that system because I guess it was very leaky when it was originally purchased. So they put money into the system and got it much more efficient. And as part of that, the savings were reallocated, so to speak, to the properties that were within that service area of the former system. So that's where you see that 12.76 acre feet. And it actually has been on the books, I think, since 93-ish timeframe, I think, or it may have been early 2000s, but it's been on the books for quite a while, and there's I think there's just over 3 acre feet left right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, just
Go ahead there,
for clarification.
Amy.
I was trying to understand the difference between the, let's call it column A, B, and C here. A plus B does not always equal C, but sometimes it does. And so I'd like to understand, what is the asterisk for? What are those numbers that you don't see?
Okay, actually, I thought they did add up. So if they didn't, then my bad on that.
Yeah, they
So
don't.
the asterisk is only to note that the column that has existing allocation is the amount of water that each jurisdiction currently has as of October 31st in their Peralta and pre-Peralta allocations. And those allocations will roll into the new allocation when the ordinance becomes effective. So at that date that the ordinance becomes effective, which right now it's proposed to be effective March 1st, we'll update that number with where each of those jurisdictions stands at that time.
Okay, and it's not a lot, but there are 4 or 5 that they're not equal.
I'll double check everything.
You know, they're little numbers. I just wondered how these little numbers are hanging around.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, I don't think I've seen in here when we're gonna relook at this ordinance again. Or is that in here, or are we gonna wait 5 or 10 years to look at the allocation, or are we gonna wait? You know,
Dave, do you
are we
want
gonna address that?
That's a good question, actually. We hadn't contemplated a regular look at the allocations. We were contemplating when one or more than one jurisdiction start approaching zero in their account, that we would revisit. But I think that's actually pretty good advice, that we should probably put in there that the district will review the allocations, because every 4 years we're going to have a new AMBAG growth forecast. Every 5 years there's a new urban water management plan, although Cal-Am's is a piece of junk every time. So
Okay, they review these meetings.
yeah, well.
Well.
So Stephanie,
warning.
Stephanie, what do you think?
No, I can add that in. I think that's fine. Like,
Yeah, I think we should probably do it at a minimum every 4 years, because what we're going to do is update our view of supply versus demand every 4 years.
do you want to do it every 4 years, or do you want to do it every 5, a minimum?
Well, so what'll happen if we go if we go to the urban water management plan cycle,
Mhm.
we're going to get way out of touch with the AMBAG regional growth forecast cycle.
You want to stay with the AMBAG forecast?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. You know,
Cycle with them.
yeah. So every 4 years subsequent to the AMBAG adoption of a regional growth forecast.
Okay, sure.
And that'll give us, you know, because they adopt, like the last one was in 2022, but then they didn't adopt the housing needs until later, like October. But it would give us, like, in the year following the adoption of AMBAG's adoption of a regional growth forecast.
So
Okay.
basically you're saying every 5 years.
No, it'd be every 4 because
what you're telling me is if it's every 4, by the time they catch up with what they're supposed to catch up on, we're looking at 5 years.
Well, except AMBAG actually adopts their model results every 4 years. And so when we start filing a wholesaler urban water management plan every 5 years, we're instructed as a wholesaler to leave out any of the sections on supply versus demand. So I think from our standpoint, we should just commit to following the AMBAG revisions with another look at our whole supply versus demand forecast.
Okay, Director Paul, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. To allow ourselves maximum flexibility, should we say at least, I mean, I get the idea of sticking with the AMBAG cycle, but just to allow for unforeseen developments, we could allow ourselves the flexibility of being able to do it sooner if there's a need.
Well, and in fact, you're absolutely right. That's kind of where our heads were at, where whenever we see that there's an issue, and so that you're right, it could happen in between the 4-year cycle. So,
Okay.
So every 4 years is the minimum, or more frequent as needed.
Fran, I see you tried to say something. What's your comments?
Yeah, Director Paul just addressed the concern that we needed to provide the flexibility. So Stephanie, you heard that message.
Yeah.
And while we hear the timeline, Dave, that you've suggested, which makes perfect sense, we have to let the board have some flexibility if there's a need sooner. So we'll add that language, Steph.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay, yeah, I'll put that in there because
And thank you, Chair Edwards.
They'll
Yes.
be looking for it. You know, we come back and beg or ask, and y'all say no.
And of course,
Go ahead,
maybe we
Derek.
get these numbers. I was just thinking that would give us and whoever in the community is watching the meetings or paying attention, it would show them what's happened with the water that we did get and how much has been committed, how many projects, what kind of activity we have. It might be a nice, kind of a reality picture for the people that think that we're going to build 700 units in a year or something.
And you do have the monthly report
Yes, we do.
of what water demand has been issuing as far as permits that track it by jurisdiction.
Mhm.
So there will be regular updates.
Yeah, I realize that.
Okay, when you talk about regular updates, is that in the ordinance that we will have regular updates?
You get it every month in the allocation report.
Okay, but it's not in the ordinance where they can refer to it, or we can refer to it. I want to cover all the bases that.
Yeah, I think there may
I don't
be
want to make it
actually,
long, but let's cover everything.
yeah, Alvin, I think it is in a different rule, but it's in
Okay,
there. I'll double check.
okay. All right. It's a good ordinance. Thank you for getting it out to us right now, so we can look at it and people can read it and look at it if they follow the committee meetings. So anything else before we go out to the public on this one?
Oh, just and Stephanie, I didn't hear you make this clear, so let me apologize if you did. The table with all the numbers in it, there's a column for existing allocations, and there's a little footnote underneath there that says it's going to be revised. So basically, numbers in that table will be finalized basically based on February 28th results. So it probably won't be a whole lot of change. And then we'll make minor adjustments to the district reserve amount based on some additional input that's coming in. But so they're not locked in stone, but they'll be very close to what you see.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I may, on
go
the
ahead.
asterisk that has been brought to your attention, there should be an edit that will appear in the board packet because it's not at the time the ordinance is adopted. We have a wait period if someone wants to appeal. And so it should, instead of the word adopted, you will see the word effective.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Anything else on this item before we go out to the public with it? Okay,
Well,
Sarah?
Just
Yeah.
a
Oh.
comment. It seems to me I was checking to see if it was sufficiently clear that this is an allocation for some period of time and that it's only a portion of the new water that's being allocated at this time. But I think it's sufficiently clear in the ordinance, but somebody will ask that question, I'm sure.
Well, Dave or Stephanie are going to give the presentation on this, and I hope they mention those kind of things.
Make sure we have it in there, yeah.
Yep, and make sure, they see it. One other thing that we probably do with this one, I probably do with it. Mr. Laredo, I'll probably be asking you a few questions. Did we cover all our bases on this? Is there anything that we missed? Did you think, and y'all look up, you and Fran look up, if Fran looked at it and she okay with it, I feel satisfied with it, but you might have some questions.
And those are questions will be readily available to answer. I know that Fran has been working with Stephanie on this, and
Well, good.
We're making it as bulletproof as we can.
Good. And Dave, I hope you'd be willing to just a quick overview of your visit to all the cities and the airport district and everything. So everybody know we talk
when we go to the board.
time.
Yeah. Yep.
So, okay, any comments from the public on this item?
Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Okay, no raised hand. This is a recommendation to the board. Do I have a first and a second?
I will move that we recommend, well, first of all, that we recommend, it's not going to be adoption for the first reading.
No, it's just the first reading.
First reading. So I recommend that first reading happen at the next meeting. And I just add that in doing the presentation for the public, to really be sure to make it clear that this is we're allocating a portion of the water because it's not to retain flexibility to be able to provide water where it's actually needed, because some jurisdictions may grow faster than others. And I just think it's important to just really make that clear to alleviate concerns.
I believe some of the questions that we probably be asking, throwing out there is going to cover that. So if you don't mind, if I don't mind, and I know they don't mind, if we bring it back up, as being transparent as we can with this, because it's a long time coming. And on that long time coming, I want to thank all of you, Fran, Stephanie, Dave, Mr. Laredo, all of you for all your hard work. If I forget to thank you at the board meeting. So you're getting your thanks now, but I'll probably thank you again if it comes up and I can remember it, okay? All right.
I'll second that motion that was offered by Director Paul a few minutes ago, right?
I appreciate that. That's good. We got a first and second, no comments from the public. Do a quick roll call vote on it.
Sure, yes. Director Paul,
Yes,
Director Anderson,
Yes,
Chair Edwards.
Yes, big yes.
Motion is adopted 3-0.
All right, thank you.
I want to add my thanks to all of you who worked on this. Stephanie, Fran, and Dave, and if I missed anybody, I want to thank them too.
big deal to get
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
All right, Dave, what's the next item?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
forgot. I had one more question. Do you, if I
Go ahead.
may? Are you gonna, Dave, are you planning to address efforts to get the CDO lifted in connection with this item?
We'll touch on it. I've been trying to separate the two, except when I go to the jurisdictions, I do have a slide that says, you know, this is not a panacea, because as long as the moratorium is still in place, you can't really, you know, you can't set a meter, you can't do a big project. So it's been tied together. But the message has been, we're trying to get this one out of the way so we can focus on that one. So yeah, in the presentation, we'll make clear. It was interesting yesterday at the County Board of Soups, because CalAm, the realtors, and the Farm Bureau all spoke, and they reiterated the need for desal. And then CalAm's message was, look, we're going to break ground in 2025 and be done with the desal plant in 2028. And that's your real solution to lifting the cease and desist order. So, you know, in complete counterpoint, right?
Boy.
So we're still, A, signals that we're still going it alone, and B, as they move that fall schedule forward, it kind of has the impact of saying, oh, desal's right around the corner, we should wait on that, which is not the message we've been trying to get out there, which is, if desal is going to happen, it's still 5 years away. Pure Water Monterey expansion is happening now. So let's position the state board to do that lifting of the CDO. So yeah, we should talk about it. I don't want to get too deep into it, because the two are linked, definitely linked.
Well, Dave, just on that item right there that you just brought up, I was going to ask you, for upcoming meeting for water demand, start drafting a timeline, what you want to look at, how you want to go at this, and so we can let the public know we're going to move forward on this.
On the lifting, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we actually do have a rough timeline already worked out, that we're going to start informally and then go formally. There's a period where we'll ask for letters of support from all the city councils and the board of supervisors, et cetera, as well as certain chambers and associations. So, yeah,
I
would like wanting to close the door on this one and then focus on that.
Yes, I want you to close the door on this one, and if you can keep the CDO separate from it, like put a update on the CDO on the agenda. Yeah, we can talk about it then. That way, people know we're moving ahead. I know what we talked about the other day was you know, the CPUC and everybody got, you know, we can't be waiting on them. That's what you're going to be hearing from me. Well,
we do kind of want to wait on them. If there's a decision imminently, but if they continue to drag their feet, now it looks like the rate case is going to get out of the way at this point, unless CalAm requests a rehearing. So if that's been the bottleneck on the supply and demand stuff, then we can maybe assume that we'll see something in January, February. If it's not, and it's politics through, you know, the governor's office and governor's appointees, which we don't know. I mean, it could be
Right.
either one. Then we may be waiting a lot longer. Don't know. So,
Well, that's the reason I wanted, if the chair don't mind and y'all don't mind, put it in a discussion item separate, so we can go at this, so I can put my 2 cents in, because I'm going to be the pusher.
yeah.
So go ahead, Fran.
I just want to add that there is also the water rights determination that has been stuck at the State Water Resources Control Board, brought by Marina and Marina Coast. And so in the Public Utilities Commission delay on seeing any proposed decision on long-term supply and demand, they could be waiting on the State Water Board as well. We don't know. So there were 2 areas that would affect whether CalM even has a water right that it needs for desal, and what the PUC determines as the long-term supply and demand numbers.
Yeah, and on that topic, Fran, originally they were expecting a report from the hearing officer.
Yes.
Mid-November, and then Marina Coast now tells me that they've been formally informed to expect a release of the report around January 1st with a 30-day public review period. So
that's good to know.
Hopefully they stick to that.
Well, that's why I don't want to keep this separate from the allocation.
Yeah.
So we can our next talk on our upcoming agenda ought to be about the CDO. The CDO. And I feel that I'm waiting for the CPUC and the state. Let's get the application up there and let them mull over it, or say, we got this to answer, and give them a time period to answer it. If they don't, let's hammer them some more. So you know how I feel about it. Okay. Any other comments on that?
I have a question on what you were talking about earlier and I hadn't heard this, CalAm saying that it would be 2028 or whatever. When they're announcing this in public, are they saying how many of these 20 special restrictions that they're already have?
No.
Okay.
No. And there are other things that aren't even in those conditions of the Coastal Commission.
Yeah.
And Karen will appreciate this. They promised the Coastal Commission that they would protect low-income ratepayers through a special protection for 10 years. Well, that's rate making. That's going to take an application or a proceeding at the PUC. The 2018 decision says if the cost is going to exceed the cost cap, you must file a petition for modification. They haven't done that, and they haven't released any new cost information. The decision said, we expect you to come to us with a request for a financing order to do the public securitization debt financing. We sent a letter in support of a CalAm letter when they got 100% of the debt financing was going to be from the state revolving fund. And they were placed on the state revolving fund priority list. But then they were subsequently dropped for lack of progress. And now there's no guarantee that there's sufficient monies available from the state revolving fund, because at that time, in 2019 roughly, there was a huge backlog of unlent monies from the Safe Drinking Water revolving fund. And so they had a big surplus. So they pushed the Pure Water San Diego project and the CalAm desalination project over to that bucket of money. But then once the money started going out in subsequent years, once CalAm was dropped off the list, there's not a huge bucket of money sitting around anymore. And so it's unclear whether CalAm can get 100% of their debt through that, which means you got to reset the clock back to what the original decision from the PUC said, which is do a securitization financing with the district. Now, they won't want to do that, of course, because things have changed in our relationship. But that's still what the original decision says. And so there's a lot of things that the original decision or the results of the Coastal Commission discussion require over at the PUC that have not been started. And if you think about either a petition for modification or a rate-making application for this low-income ratepayer assistance, that's a 2-year process, especially with all the interveners and the way the PUC operates. It could be a 3-year process. So this concept that they speak publicly that, oh, we're going to break ground next year, to us is just undoable. It's unachievable. So, it's even if they got 19 of those 20 conditions knocked off, they've not addressed these types of issues whatsoever.
And they certainly haven't gotten 19 knocked off. I don't know
No.
how many, but it's
No.
got to be a low number.
Yeah.
Okay. We're on discussion items. I think we just discussed the water allocation process. Anything you want to discuss on that some more, Dave?
No, I just want to let you know we're done now. We've visited. So the service branch has said no need for a presentation. We're good with what you're doing for us. So we've done the airport. We've done 5 of the 6 cities and the county now.
Great.
No major pushback, except the county kind of steered the conversation away from water allocation and more towards their ongoing concern about source waters available for the Pure Water Monterey project. It was almost as if, we're here to make a gift that should be accepted in with happiness and merriment. And I couched it when I did the presentation. We're here to discuss water available for issuance of building permits in the unincorporated county in the water district's jurisdiction using California American Water. So permits, what do permits mean? Housing, commercial projects, and so forth. And the cautionary words that came out of 2 of the 4 supervisors were almost like, oh, please don't give us any water because we're not confident that that water is going to be there for the long term. It was almost as if they were rejecting the concept of an allocation of water. The 2 other supervisors obviously endorsed the whole process because they want to get started on housing. And frankly, all of the supervisors, in my opinion, should have gotten behind that message because they're all responsible for the housing element. They're all responsible for the regional housing needs allocation. And this is the only path forward in the near term. And if you're holding on for a desalination project, great. But if it's not going to happen for 5 years, there's no housing starts for 5 years. So, the message that we were bringing was we're one step closer to being able to do large scale housing projects, job formation. This is the nearest best path. And we just got pushback again on, the viability, long-term availability of supply. One of the supervisors said, well, we have to solve the Sigma issues and that water may diminish over time. We may need to take it back. And it's like, trying to get the point across that the amount of water that could even conceivably be identified as water coming from the valley is only a portion of the water that serves Pure Water Monterey. And that portion is a teeny tiny itty bitty bit compared to the groundwater problem that they have in the Salinas Valley. So they cannot solve their problem with water they perceive as being shipped to the peninsula. And it was just one of those, okay, we came to talk on one subject, now we're talking on the other subject. Fine, let's have this interaction. But they're still not confidently behind the Pure Water Monterey expansion. But It's not as if they have a veto or, you know, anything. We're building it, you know, it's coming.
Attitudes may change when the water is actually
Yeah.
delivered,
Process.
actually
Yeah.
available.
Well,
That's
you
my
would have
hope.
said that for the Pure Water Monterey project in the first time. I mean, it's been proven, it's coming out.
Yeah.
So,
You know, people maybe then will be so glad to have the water available that they will start thinking differently, maybe some people.
Yeah.
Okay. How about,
I would think that the realtor, I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I would think that might include at least some of the realtors, because, you know, if housing housing can be built. And then there's also the greenhouse gas, you know, the climate change mitigation plans, and you know, building worker, you know, housing that so workers can live closer to the jobs.
Yeah, Adam Pentritz, who is government affairs for the Association of Realtors, did endorse this allocation, but then went on to state that, you know, long term we need a drought-proof desalination plant. And I guess and Mary Adams somewhat endorsed that, yeah, there's going to be a future need for desal, but on a regional basis. And the unspoken underlying foundational element of this is when will we need that, you know, and I don't think we've gotten people past including the ALJ at the PUC doing the supply and demand analysis. Their easiest path out at the PUC would be to say, it really doesn't look like a desal plant is needed in the near term, but it might be needed in the long term. So Cal-Am, please stop work on the desal plant, but we'll keep the memorandum account open. And we won't go to a stranded cost proceeding yet. And let's come back and relook at this after the cease and desist order has been lifted for a few years or something like that. You know, is there a safe path out for the PUC? I don't know. But
well, that's the next item. Update on phase 2.
Well, yeah, we've kind of touched on that one.
Right.
No answer, no schedule. And it does affect our approach to the state board. So we're hopeful we'll have information, but we're going to start structuring our pitch informally to the state board as lifting the CDO is separate from the desalination project, and it's separate from the supply and demand conclusions.
You just hit it for me. You just hit it. All this stuff is separate. So why are we going to be waiting on it? That's my goal, is saying what you just said. It's all separate. Let's go for the CDO, you know, getting the water in use instead of waiting for the state, waiting for the PUC. That, you know, that's what's aggravating me, confuses me.
Well, and I'll be frank, you know, at one point, Dave Laredo said, you know, you should probably try to find a water customer who's suffering from a regulatory taking to make that regulatory taking case. And I'm not firmly in agreement with that, because every customer is experiencing a regulatory taking, or, you know, every potential developer, every potential city manager or city planner that wants to see anything done. I'd rather focus on, actually, Michael, what you and I talked about briefly, which is, look, if you're not in violation, or you haven't been in violation, and you can demonstrate you're not going to be in violation, there has to be some reasonableness test that says, okay, you've been clean for 4 years. It's obvious from this data that you're going to be clean for the next 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 30 years. So, you know, what legal basis do they have to maintain a CDO in that situation? And so I think I'd like to spend more time looking at other precedent to see if there is any that, you know, where somebody has said, yeah, look, if you're unlikely to violate the CDO in 5 years, then there's not a violation here. We'll look at it again in 5 years and how close you are. But so we still have some work to do on that end. But I think we can make our case with or without the PUC's proposed decision or final decision, and with or without it indicating that desalination is needed sooner or later. We'd prefer to have a decision that says, okay, you 5 interveners were right and the company was wrong, which is somewhat obvious. But if it doesn't come out, it doesn't come out. But that's no longer the point. The point is there's a surplus of water coming from the pure water expansion. It's going to be a surplus for multiple years. And so, you know, why keep us in jail? So anyway, but that discussion is going to be informal in January, February, and then April, May we'll distribute a we'll file a formal petition for modification is the current thinking.
Put a timeline on it. Put it in everybody's face. Put it on the record so they know. Go ahead, Karen, and then you, Amy.
Okay.
Well, since there's a surplus in the early years, we would end up building a drought reserve.
Right.
And that might help with the concern about drought proof.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole reason for storage. And if, you know, I don't mean to belittle CalAm, but if you just run a spreadsheet where you look at, and it's not even our growth projections, they could run some of their growth projections, but you don't grow all of your growth in the first year. So as you're moving up over time, the difference between the water you have and the water you need is going into the ground. And all you need is a column in your spreadsheet that shows at the end of the year, you add that to your balance and it's available at the beginning of the next year. I mean, this is simple water resource supply 101 stuff.
Yeah, simple math.
They never did that in their ASR testimony and their third-party consultant testimony. And they didn't do it in their overall water supply planning, actually in filing the original application in 2012 or any recent work. They're not treating the water system like a water system. You know, it's like San Francisco. You have to look at what you think is going to be in Hetch Hetchy. What's going to be in, Contra Costa Water District. What's going to be in Lake Del Valle? What do you have in storage year in and year out? And it's never shown up in any of the CalAm testimony, inexplicably. But, you know, we're trying to explain that to the common person, and that just goes straight past.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Storage. The only point I wanted to make is it's also been how long since the desal plant was designed, and there's going to be new technology, and this is not Cuba. We're not importing 1957 cars, you know.
Yep.
So that's also something.
Well, and interestingly, I sit on Cal Desal's regulatory subcommittee, and we've had a lot of discussion about the state's been updating their state water plan, and then the ocean plan is looking at updates. And we're not anti-desal. We're very pro-desal when it's appropriate at the right time with the right technology at the right cost. Yeah. And so we've been working in a group with what's called Ocean Well. There's 3 pretty well-funded startups that are doing analyses of offshore desalination. And the concept is not unlike wind farms or oil wells that are, sit out there, and the product is basically manufactured out offshore, wind energy, and it's brought in on a cable. And if you've got 12 turbines sitting out there, off of the Santa Barbara coast, there aren't 12 different cables going to shore. Those 12 go to a central, single cable. And so your engineering feat is bringing one cable up to a little substation and then distributing that power into the grid. Well, it's the same concept with desalination. And because you can use the pressure differentials of, higher sea level versus lower sea level, and you can go into the photic zone where there's less marine life, as you would know, Amy, right? You get down where the sun doesn't penetrate. And so there's a lot of promise to that kind of technology. And we've brought them here to Monterey. We put them together with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary people to talk about the issues. They're looking at 4 different coastal zones in California. So there are, just as you point out, there is better technology. There will be newer technology, and it could happen really within the sweet spot of when desal is actually needed here on the peninsula or in the county. So.
Okay, any other questions on that item?
I'm done.
Okay, any items for the future? Is one item for the future I like to see on Water Demand Committee is Stephanie, your update on that special project that y'all got going over there. I think I seen it on the regular agenda.
The amnesty. Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
amnesty.
Yeah. I like for you to put that up for your future agendas. Just keep us updated on that.
Sure.
In the committee. And then Dave, I see you're going to update the full board. I think it's on your in your general manager report. I think it is, but give the full board an update. Okay, any comments from the public on anything that we covered, so we make sure we haven't left them out? I think we got about two new faces. So do they want to comment on any items?
Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Okay, committee members, y'all have anything else?
I don't.
Staff? Anything else?
Nope.
If not,
Stephanie, nice work on the ordinance.
Thank you.
yes,
Yeah.
And Fran.
Yeah.
Both
Yeah.
of you.
like
Thank
I
you.
said, I thanked y'all early, so board meeting, if I forget, don't get mad.
We won't let you forget.
I'm going to try not to forget because this was a long time coming.
Yeah.
Long time coming. Okay, call it in a meeting adjourned.
Great.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Em.
Have a nice day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.